Okay, thank you for waiting patiently. My name is Russ Johnson. I'm the Career Development Facilitator here. Like I mentioned before, I help students learn about jobs or learn about careers through job shadowing and internships. I also help students access college. That means doing a lot of college applications and doing a lot of FAFSAs. Tonight we have ICANN here that's they're the local experts on FAFSA, so they're gonna talk to you about that. We have Maggie Borman from ICANN, she's gonna talk, and then we have Susan Dickinson from the University of Iowa, she's gonna talk as well. So, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to test out this mic, so hopefully it doesn't go. Does it sound okay? Okay. Like he said, I'm Maggie with ICANN. I'm probably a little shorter than the last person that was up here. I just got over a cold this past week, so if you can't hear me on something, feel free to yell out and tell me to repeat it or ask me a question during the presentation at any time or towards the end as well. But I'm going to be here talking about paying for college today. I want to thank our partner first. We're able to put on these presentations because we partner with specific people or get grants. So I'll let Susan introduce herself quick.
Hi everyone, my name is Susan Dickinson, Senior Assistant Director at the University of Iowa. I've been with Iowa Admissions for this is now year 8, and I am the admission counselor for our local students here in Johnson County. So I'll chat a little bit more about our specific process. I'll also hang out for a little while afterwards if you have questions about Iowa admissions, our financial aid or scholarships, and happy to answer those as well. Nice to be here.
So like I said, I'm here with ICANN, that stands for Iowa College Access Network. So our mission is here on the screen. We are a nonprofit. So what that means is that we're able to help you and advise you and come to schools like this for free to you. So if you want help with any of these services, we can help you and it's at no charge. You can call me 15 to 20 times a year and even more, email me as much as you want, and it's all free. So we help with the transition from high school to those next steps, whether that's career, college. If we can't answer those questions, we'll help you figure out those questions because we'll know people who can answer them. So anything along the way, feel free to reach out and we will help you with that. You can schedule with us as an in-person appointment, so you can come to one of our offices or you can come and meet with us virtually. That will be over Zoom. So you just schedule an appointment, whether you call in or go to our website, and we'll schedule an appointment and we'll send you a Zoom link, and then you just join at your own convenience. So I know if we have students in different areas, or maybe we're working and we only have a lunch break, that's sometimes an easier thing that can be done versus coming into one of our offices. If you're looking at the screen, that schedule an appointment icon will be towards the center. So you just go to our website, icansucceed.org, and there you'll click that and you can schedule a website at your convenience, or if it's easier for you to call in, you can do that as well. My business cards are on your way out, so feel free to collect those. They'll have both of these things on it. As well as one thing I'd like to point out with this screen as well, events and presentations in the center. Just like today, we offer a variety of events and presentations and Wednesday webinars. So with those, it is going to be all in one place on our website right there. So if you can't go to a webinar, or if you can't watch a webinar, or if you weren't able to come to a different presentation of ours here, feel free to go there, click that, and view what we've already recorded, and you can watch it at your own convenience or register for upcoming webinars as well. So when that FAFSA comes, like we're going to talk about today, if you want to watch a full webinar on a step-by-step, so we're going to show you exactly how to go through it and exactly how to set up your studentaid.gov account, you can go and do it exactly with our step-by-steps. At the top of the screen, you can see we do have a variety of services like I explained. You can, if you're not ready for an appointment yet, you can always go and explore our website. So you can go click career planning, college planning, and dive a little deeper into those and look at our materials that we have to help you. I am at the Hiawatha or Cedar Rapids location at the Kirkwood Lynn Regional Center. I am not your usual advisor for this territory, but your advisor had another presentation going on, so we split it up. So if you work in the Cedar Rapids area, please feel free to come to me, and always you can reach out to either of us. But Lupe is your traditional advisor for this area, so if you meet with her, if she has an event here, or if she has another presentation and you see someone other than me, it's going to probably be Lupe that is actually your advisor for this area, and she's at your Iowa City Capital Center location. When your kid does go to school, if they go somewhere other than here, all because you start with someone doesn't mean you have to stay with them. You are more than welcome. If your kid goes to Iowa State, we have a DMAC location, they can definitely go to our office there and use us as well. Today, there was some materials when you walked in. We have that booklet on what's going to cover all this presentation and more. We only have a specific amount of time. I can't cover every little thing, but anything you do see on the screen will be in that booklet. So anything you want to reference, you can find there, as well as there is a calendar. So it has junior and senior year, depending on what year you are in here. It is going to take you month by month and step by step to make sure you are on track for graduation. So it's a nice little outline to make sure if you missed something, or maybe if you are a senior, look on that junior side and see if there's anything that you haven't completed yet that you can get a head start on to make sure you're not behind before the second half of the year. As well as that ready to file the FAFSA slip, this is a handy piece of paper because it's not only going to tell you everything you need to get prepared for when that FAFSA times comes, which we'll talk about in a second, but it is going to have that list where you can check it off. It is also going to maybe point out some things to you that you didn't know you needed to think about before the FAFSA starts. So with that, there was also another one that's not on this screen. That's the studentaid.gov account that we'll talk about, but it is a step-by-step for that, as well as a place to put all that information when you create that account. I have people every single year come to me and they forget what their password or their username is or what information they put down. So it's a nice sheet to have and keep in one specific place with you and your students to have for that to reflect on in the upcoming year so that you know what you actually put down for your account. So to kind of overview the presentation today, I'll try to keep it to an hour, but there is a lot of information. If there are any questions that you have during it, like I said, feel free to ask. You might not be the only one with that question, but as well as if it's something you'd rather just ask personally or you don't know how to phrase it, you can come up to me. I'll hang out here at the end. I'll stay as long as I need to answer all your questions. So we'll talk about that financial aid process. We'll talk about calculating and understanding financial aid, those resources, as well as what scholarships looks like, the program, and how to get assistance, not only with ICANN, but other people as well along the way. So some big misunderstandings that come with the financial aid process is that people think it's meant to pay for all your college cost. Sadly, that's not always true. So we're going to look at those different ways to make up that cost, as well as that financial aid is only gift aid, so it's all that free money. It's made up of other things as well, like loans, so that's why we have to fill out the FAFSA. So what is financial aid? It is going to be made up of two different things, that gift aid, so that free money, grants and scholarships, merit-based aid from institutions, as well as self-help aid. So those loans, work study, which is what we're going to cover today, so that you have all that knowledge when you start seeing these things on financial aid offers. But before we can get to that point, we are going to talk about the application process, so that FAFSA term. I'm sure you've started to hear it get thrown out a bunch. You've maybe seen a lot on it. It is that free application for federal student aid. So that FAFSA is going to be required every single year that you are going to college. It is going to be required by some state and institutional aid as well. And then what it is going to be is a snapshot of your family's financial situation. Why you should always fill out the FAFSA. So if you are thinking of that you may need loans, federal loans, to be able to qualify for them, you have to fill out that application. It's going to be required for some state aid, like I said, so like Iowa tuition grant, Last Dollar Scholar, and more. And it might be required by your actual college or university that you're wanting to attend to be able to get your aid or for them to actually give you a financial aid offer. So it's always good to fill it out and have that in your back pocket. So when we are talking about the FAFSA, it is normally, we keep putting this on here hoping it will go back to this, it is normally the fall of your senior year is when you will fill it out. So for raise of hands, who was all seniors in here? I assumed it was most of you, okay. So even though this year it is said that it is going to open December 1, with that, it is normally October 1. So last year was a weird year and it's kind of trickled into this year, but we're hoping after all of this is finally caught up, next fall, so when your seniors are then freshmen in college, which I know feels crazy, will hopefully be October 1 again that you can start filling out that FAFSA form. When you do this, you're going to go to studentaid.gov studentaid.gov. If it is something else besides that, do not put in your personal information. We want to make sure we're staying safe. So that is the website you will use. And then it's a really nice form because it's usually processed within 3 to 5 days. So I know right now the people that were filling it out towards the end of spring last year, it was processed within 1 to 3 days. So we'll see how that goes once the form starts coming out, as well as that it has skip logic. So as you go through, you're going to answer questions, and you may not answer every single question that someone else does, because it's going to ask you questions pertain to you and your situation, and if it knows that it's not, then it won't even ask you those questions along the way. So you won't have to answer anything that you shouldn't along the way with that skip logic. As well as it has helpful icons too that are going to be able to help you and guide you along the way. Before we can talk about the physical form of the FAFSA, there is one thing you have to do before that. That is creating a studentaid.gov account. If you are parents of prior students, you would have known this as a FSA ID account. Same exact thing. They are just changing the name of it. So it is your login to studentaid.gov. What it does is it is going to act not only as your login, but it is tied to you. So it's tied to your name, social security number, date of birth. It is what identifies you in the system. As well as it's going to act as your legal signature at the end of the form. So to be able to sign and submit your form, you're going to use it and click and sign away to be able to have it submitted. When we do create our studentaid.gov account, it is going to be needed by everyone. So your student will need an account as well as a parent, depending on your circumstance, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Both parents may need it or one parent may just need it. So again, it's always safe just to create one for every single person if you're worried about it. But if you have any questions, feel free to talk to me if you're worried about it after I talk about it a little bit more going on. But like I said, parent and student need it. When we are looking at creating an FSA or a studentaid.gov account, it is important to do it early. So December 1 is coming up when it's supposed to open. You can do it as simple as today. If you are parents of a junior, you can do it as simple as today as well. You just can't actually fill out the form, or you're not supposed to fill out the form until it actually comes out. So you can't actually fill out this form. So when you are in there and you're creating your studentaid.gov account, it is going to take a few days to verify. So it has to match to your social security number. So when you're putting in your name, date of birth, social security number, email, phone number, and you're answering all the other questions, creating a username in your security questions, you are going to have to complete making that login, and then it's going to have to sit there and verify. In your settings, it'll say have your social security number, and it'll say whether it's matched or not. This has to be matched to be able to complete the form. Once they know it's matched and they can verify your social security number identifies with the rest of your information, that is how they pull in your tax information on the back end as you go throughout the form. So you have to have it verified. So if you show up to me December 1 and you don't have an account, I can't help you actually complete the form. So go home and do that. You could do it anytime before December 1. If, say, December 1 hits and you haven't done it yet, definitely do it then. But I'd recommend getting it done sooner than later. When we are creating this account, you are going to have to verify not only your phone number, but your email as well. This is going to help you. I recommend doing both, because if you forget your username, if you forget your password down the road, you can use either of these and get into your account still. You're also going to have to verify them, because every time you log in, and I'm going to say this very clearly, every time you log in, you have to send a code to one of those sources. So it's like that two-step verification that you have to verify it's actually you. So when you are filling out the form and logging in, you're going to have to do this with not only your account, but when you log in for your student as well, you'll have to do it there. So that's something that's important. If you come to us to help create this account or fill out your FAFSA form, you are going to have to make sure you can actually access your student, or if you send the student to us, that you can access the parent, because we have to get that actual verification code from the phone or email that it's sent to. So these are all things that you're going to have to know when you are filling out, or when you are creating that FSA or the studentaid.gov account. You are going to have to know these details. It'll be asked. You can't skip a section and come back. So making sure you have all that information when you sit down to create that studentaid.gov account. So now that you have an account created and verified, it'll be time to create or start filing out that FAFSA form. So when that FAFSA form does come, like I said, December 1 is going to be when it opens. A lot of people will start trying to do it then, and that is completely okay. I always say give it a couple days to let the bugs run out of it. But if you're wondering when you should have it done by, it is by the priority date of your school. So have it done by the earliest priority date. So say you have a February 1st, March 1, and then a July 1 priority date, which means when the school wants it in by to guarantee you aid, so any state aid, federal aid, you will want it done by that February 1 date. So making sure you have it done and completed before that first school's priority date. If you are unsure of those, reach out to the school. They'll be more than willing to help you. Or we also, closer to date, will have all of them on our website as well. Some tips for filling out the FAFSA are going to be making sure you have all the documents on that sheet ready to go, that you have read the directions carefully, so when you're filling out that FAFSA form, you read every single thing, as well as that you're asking questions along the way. You don't want to do it incorrectly and then have to go back and fix something, so always feel free to reach out, as well as you're keeping a copy of these records down the road in case you do have any questions, and that you're completing it every year. So again, you'll go to studentaid.gov. They have this logo that you can find. When we start filling out that form, it is going to ask a variety of questions like I already stated, but it's going to first want to figure out whether your student is an independent or dependent. So I'll go through these questions specifically and read them, and you can then identify whether your student's a dependent or independent. So if your student was born before January 1 of 2002, then they would be an independent. So if they were born before 2002, then they would qualify as an independent and not have to put down their parents' information. If they are a dependent, they then have to complete this form with a parent's information. As of today, are you married? So if they're married, then they file as a independent. At the beginning of the time of the 25-26 school year, will you be working on a grad program? So if your student is maybe living on their own or anything like that, but they are not working on a grad program, they haven't met, they're married, and they haven't met that they're 24 going into the school year, then they would still be a dependent. Are you currently serving on active duty in the armed forces or for purposes other than training, or are you a veteran of the U.S. Armed Forces? If you say yes to that, you're an independent. Do you have children or dependents who receive more than half of their support from you between July 1 of 2025 and June 30th of 2026? If they can answer yes at that time, then they're an independent. I've had people come to me, if your student sometime through their college years does have a child, if they are pregnant when filling out the form, the child does have to actually be here to qualify for this. So they would have to refill out once the child was born. At any time since you turned 13, were both your parents deceased, were you in foster care, or were you dependent, or were the court? If you can answer yes to this, you're an independent. Determined by the court in your state of legal residence, are you or were you an emancipated minor or in a legal guardianship? Again, if you can answer yes, you're an independent. At any time on or after July 1 of 2024, were you homeless or at risk of being homeless or as an accompanied youth? So for a variety of these things, you're going to see that you can answer yes to these and move on. You will have to make sure that you can support these and actually give legal documentation when doing these. So making sure that if you are answering these, that you can actually support that documentation to the financial aid office down the road, because they will reach out for checks and balances. There's also unusual circumstances. So if you go through this and none of those apply to you, but you cannot provide parent information, it will then ask you if you have an unusual circumstance. You'll check yes, and then you'll have to provide documentation that will follow along with that. Again, reaching out to that financial aid office and talking with them will be the greatest step for this, so that you can know what you need to prepare for them. So the FAFSA is a role-based form. With the role-based form, it means that each contributor for the role based on the FAFSA will be able to see only questions associated with them. So when you do start the form, the student will log in or the parent will log in, and you'll end up inviting each other down the road. So if the student logs in, when they are filling out the form, they can only see their information on the form. So it'll only see their questions, they'll complete their portion, and then the parent will start their portion through their account. So they'll have to log in separately and complete their side of things. Same on the other side. If the parent decides to log in and complete their part, they will only see their information. They won't see their student's side of things. So with that, when you are looking at this, making sure that you are doing it correctly under the contributor. I do have parents or students all the time that will start the form and they click whether they are the parent or the student, and they click it incorrectly. So make sure if you are the student, you're clicking the student. If you're the parent, you're clicking the parent when filling out the FAFSA. So if you're looking at figuring out who a contributor is, it is anyone who is required to provide that information on the student's FAFSA form. So including that student, a student's spouse, a biological or adoptive parent, or the parent's spouse or step-parent. So who the contributor is not is grandparents, foster parents, legal guardianships, siblings, uncles, aunts. So if we cannot, in the upcoming slides, if I have not identified you as technically a contributor, you technically cannot be on the form. Say even for some reason, if the parent is not separated from the student in any kind of way, but the student has been living with the aunt just because they decided they didn't want to live with the parents, if there's no legal reason, then you still have to put the parents' information. You can't put the aunts just because they're living with them. So when we're identifying those contributors, making sure the student or parent begins the FAFSA form, their answers will determine which contributor, if any, will be required to provide that information. So when we are filling it out, it will ask you the proper questions to tell you who is going to be needed on this form. When you invite them, it will it'll have a specific page, so whether you're on the student side or parent side, they will tell you when it's time to invite that student or parent. You're going to put in the name, date of birth, social security number, and that email address. You're going to want to make sure that this matches exactly as how the studentaid.gov account was created. So being very careful with this, because if you don't put it in correctly, it will then not match up and you won't be able to find that invite in the other account. I do know this sounds very complex when I am talking about it, but when you see it in real time, it looks a lot more simple along the way. So just making sure that you're ready to provide that information too when you get into that form is important. When the contributor is ready to start, making sure that you are either going into your email account and accepting that invite, or you are just logging into your account. When we get these invites, say the student starts the form and invites the parent, you can either go into your email and accept that invite and go to your account, or you can just log in directly to your account, which honestly I recommend, and just go straight into that invite from the student to complete your side of the form. So after you create your account, you can then get into that form and make sure you start, and you can go ahead and start that form. After we are done with the form, you'll sign, submit, and you'll still be able to view that form when it is completed in it. When you start the form, you will identify those contributors. From there, then you'll put in some basic demographic information on your side of the form, and with that will come consent. There is a big waiver towards the beginning of the form after you fill out, after you accept that all your contact information looks correct, after you state how long you've lived in Iowa. There's a consent waiver asking, are you okay with us pulling in your information from your account information so that they can pull in your taxes from the IRS? With this, you do have to accept it to be able to continue. It's also going to then accept that you are okay with sharing your information that you put on the form with all the colleges that your student is wanting it sent to. So both student and parent will have to consent on their sides of the form. It's just selecting yes, that you're okay with it, and clicking continue. But if you do not click this consent, you will not be able to complete the form. So even if the student clicks the consent and says okay, if the parent doesn't on their side, the form can't be completed and it won't be submitted to be able to complete the actual form itself. So again, what it does, it pulls in that information on the back end. If you are a parent that has filled out the FAFSA form prior to this, can you raise your hand? Okay, so before, if it wasn't this just past year, if it was before that, you used to have to enter in all your tax information, or you would pull it, but it still would only pull like half your information. From there, now it's a lot more simple, where it is as simple as clicking this consent, and from your information that's verified in your account, it then pulls in a lot of your tax information, and you only have to put in really your assets. So it's a lot more simple. It may seem, I've had so many people contact me this year saying, did I do it wrong? I didn't have to put in tax information or look at my W-2s. It's correct. It pulls it in easy. You don't have to look and sort through those documents as much anymore. On our checklist, you will see that we ask you to bring those if you come to our appointments. It's just in case, for some reason, it doesn't form and doesn't pull in, and we do have to enter it in for you. So always have them ready, but most likely you won't have to use them, which is a really nice thing. So who is considered the parent? A lot of times I'll get these questions. When we're looking at who the parents are that have to actually be on the form, if both your legal parents are married, then you answer questions as usual and you'll include both those parents. If both your legal parents are unmarried but they live together, then you still have to include both those parents. If your parent is widowed or single, you just answer the question about that parent. If the parent is widowed or single and its taxes were filed jointly, we'll separate those taxes as well. So if that's a circumstance and you are having issues, come to us and we'll help you separate those taxes out. If your widowed parent is remarried as of today, you can answer the question about that parent and your step-parent. So when you fill out the form, if they are married as of that day, remarried as of that day, you'll fill it out with both. If your parents are divorced or legally separated, you answer the question about the parent that has provided the most financial support. This is the one where I get a lot of questions about. It starts with financial support, and if you can say no to that, I do ask usually a few follow-up questions. If you live with a parent more, one or the other, that's considered more financial support. If a parent supports you by putting them on insurance, that's considered more financial support. If it comes even to all of those three questions, then it'll ask you on there, it'll say if a parent provided, which parent actually makes the most, then you'll put that parent down. So that's how they'll ask you on it. Again, these questions are on the back of that checklist, as well as they will be on that FAFSA form to help you determine that as well. If this parent that's divorced, out of those questions, whichever one you said yes to, if that parent's remarried as of today, you answer the questions about both that parent or your step-parent. This is another tricky one. I will have people come in and they are like, okay, well, on my 2023 taxes, I didn't put down, I wasn't married then. I got married last month. So say you come December 1 and you got married November 1. All because they aren't on your taxes, you still have to include them because as of that day you're filling out the form, you are married. So if you're legally married that day, you have to put them down on the form. It then, after identifying who needs to be put on the form and filling out that information, it will ask you about family size. This one, it's tripped up a few people, but it'll ask you if your family size is the same as your tax returns that we're going off of. So if it's the same, if your dependents haven't changed, you can say that it hasn't changed. If it has changed, so say you had a student that you claimed on your 2023 taxes, but now they've aged out and you're not putting them on your taxes anymore, and they don't meet any of the dependent requirements on the FAFSA, then you can say that your family size has changed. So as you go through the form again, we get through our taxes, that family size, and then it comes to businesses and farms and our investments. It'll have a whole assets portion. Before you get to the businesses and farms portion, it will ask you your total balance of your savings and checking accounts combined. With that, it is going to have you and your spouses, if you are married. On your student side, you'll just have to have them. So again, cash, savings, and checking accounts, all of that together, or on-hand cash, that is what you'll have to include. So it's good to know that number if you're coming to me before you come in that day. If not, you can look it up quickly, but you won't have to show me any physical proof. I don't need to see your documents. So knowing that information, and then it'll talk about investments in businesses and farms. When we're looking at this, these will be separate questions. It will ask you the net worth of your business and farm. So that is going to be the current value minus any debt. This is going to be including land, buildings, machinery, equipment, inventory. So all that minus any debt you have against it. So if you bought a truck today and you paid $100,000 on it, or you loaned it out for $100,000, you technically owe nothing on it because you haven't paid any of that loan yet, so you would be zero. Say you bought one for $100,000, you've already paid $50,000 on it, it'd be $50,000, then that's technically the net worth of that truck for your farm. So looking at those things and kind of having that added up, for farmers, I always get the questions, it will usually be within your bank would usually know, because usually they have to put in certain documents notifying how much their net worth is, or always talk to an accountant about it. But again, those will be numbers that we need to know. When we get to the investments portion, there are a lot of things we have to include and some that we don't. So these will be everything that you have to include on it. So any real estate other than the home you live in, trust funds, mutual funds, money market funds, CDs, stocks, bonds, these are all things like that you'll have to include not only for you, but your student will have a portion on theirs as well. So if they would have a mutual fund, you need to know about that to have that information on there. And it's roughly the value as of that day. Obviously things can fluctuate pretty quickly, so if it's changed from maybe the night before you looked it up, I'm not going to question you too hard on it, but making sure you are looking those up before. Also, as well as 529 plans, making sure that you are including those as well. It will be on this parent side though, and it'll just be for the student that you are applying for. So it used to be you have to include every single student that you have, but it's just a student that you are applying for on that form. The investments we won't include, again, are the house that you live in, any kind of life insurance values, retirement, so 401ks, Roth IRAs, pension funds, annuities. These are all on that sheet as well on the back. So if you want a hard copy of what to include and what not to include, that sheet out there will also help you. Another thing to know is that if you do have any questions with these, feel free to shoot me an email as well, and I can definitely get that answered for you. If you fill out this form and you come to the end and you are thinking, okay, those taxes in the 2023 year look nothing like what the upcoming year is going to bring me. And by that, I mean bring you less. If you're bringing more, just keep on going on your way, great for you. If it's going to be bringing you less, so say for some reason you had medical expenses that aren't covered by insurance, a marital status change, maybe you lost your job and you're looking for employment, or you're making way less than what you have before. This can be a reason for a special circumstance. So what this is once you have completed that FAFSA form, so we've answered all those questions, we got to the signature page, and we signed and submitted it. You can then reach out to your college specifically, or if your student's applying to 5, you can wait until they narrow it down more, or you can reach out to all 5 financial aid offices and say, I have a special circumstance, I've lost my job, I don't know where my next check is coming from, or I know that I'm making $30,000 less than what was in that last tax year. What that's going to be is, it is going to be up to the college then to determine if you are qualified for a special circumstance. With that, there is going to be documentation needed. That is specific to each college. They will tell you what they need, what you need to fill out, what they need to see, but that is something that is available. So if it's a circumstance you find yourself in, either this year or in a couple years from now, you can always talk to that college. When it's completed, it's sent off. It will say, congratulations, you completed your FAFSA. What's next? What is next from here is going to be that your FAFSA is processed within the next 3 to 5 business days. Right now it says 1 to 3. That could be in the upcoming year, but I always like to say 3 to 5 just in case. From there then, once it is processed, you can then see a FAFSA submission summary. Once it is processed, that means it's also sent off to that college, and then it's up to their timeline when they create a financial aid offer and get it back to you. So always talk with your financial aid advisors or your admissions counselor, especially if you're wondering when that next step in your timeline is. So with the FAFSA submission summary, it is going to have everything that you put in your FAFSA form, so you can go back and look specifically on your side of the form what you put in. So if you need to look to see if you need to change anything, or if there's anything you need from your FAFSA to put on your scholarships, you can find it all there in one easy place. It's also nice because if you're wondering where your FAFSA is at in the process, it'll tell you right there whether it's under review or actually processed and sent off to the college. Another thing that may happen once your FAFSA is processed is that you might be selected for verification. Verification, do you want to talk about verification? Yeah. Use the mic. Okay.
So with financial aid verification, each year a select number of FAFSA filers at each institution are randomly selected for financial aid verification. Basically what this means is that financial aid offices are sending out federal dollars and they're dispersing federal aid. And so if the financial aid office at any of these institutions were ever audited, we would need to be able to say that we're doing our due diligence to make sure that we're giving federal dollars to the right people. So we need to be able to say that we're doing what we can to make sure that we're giving federal financial aid money to the right students. And so we use the verification process to make sure. So typically about a third of FAFSA filers each year are randomly selected for verification. This means you may be contacted by the financial aid office at schools that you've applied to. They'll ask for some additional information to essentially confirm what was listed in your FAFSA. And so that's going to, basically, many institutions are just going to send you a form that you need to fill out. They may ask for additional copies of your tax forms or additional information, just again to verify what you submitted in your FAFSA form. The biggest thing I always tell people, if you are selected for verification, is not to panic. It does not mean that you've done anything wrong. It just means you happen to be one of the folks that were selected for this process. And so if you receive any communication from any financial aid offices at the schools that your student has applied to about verification, read those carefully, send in the information they're asking you to send as soon as possible. If you have any questions, call the admissions or financial aid office. I typically get a handful of students each year that will contact me a little panicked that they've been selected for financial aid verification. But again, if they send in the information that the financial aid office has requested, everything's going to be good to go. Just make sure that they don't ignore those emails. Ignoring those emails could result in their financial aid being delayed. Again, read those emails carefully, provide the information that's being asked, and you'll be good to go from there.
Yep, thanks. Okay, bear with me. Hopefully I'll stop coughing here. So that rounds out. I won't talk too much more about the FAFSA form itself, so that kind of rounds it out. If you do have any questions more about that, again, feel free to talk to me after this. It is a complex process, or like I said, we do have a webinar that goes step by step through it. So we're actually going to show you screenshots of what the FAFSA form looks like. It's kind of hard to explain when you don't have it here on the screen. So with that, we'll talk about some key terms that you'll have to know when doing the FAFSA and that financial aid process. So student aid index is going to be one that you will see. It is a number that is calculated from your FAFSA. It's what colleges use to actually then determine your aid. So it is going to be that parent contribution plus that student contribution, and that's what's going to equal your SAI. It is going to be made up of cost. Another key term you're going to see is that cost of attendance. So direct cost, indirect cost. So that tuition and fees and housing and food will be those direct costs, as well as indirect costs of like books and supplies, transportation, and other things. One thing that is important will be financial need. When you have that cost of attendance that we talked about, it will be that minus your SAI, and that is what creates the financial need. So that is what colleges will use then to determine what is made up of grants, scholarship, loans, etc. Another thing that may be talked about a little bit at your school might be a CSS profile. This is one that's maybe not as common, but some colleges will require this. If you want to know more about it, again, reach out to us and we're more than willing to help you. So sources and programs of financial aid are going to be made up of that gift aid and self-help aid that we discussed earlier. It's going to look like federal, state, institutional, and private sources. When we're looking at federal student aid, it is going to be made up of subsidized and unsubsidized loans. These are going to be determined on need-based or not need-based. So with this, subsidized is going to be need-based. It is going to be meaning that it is the government pays your interest during it. So it is when you qualify through it for your federal aid or through your FAFSA form, it is then going to say, okay, this student is need-based. We will not charge them interest through their time in college, and it is a fixed rate just like the other loan as well. you may more than likely qualify for an unsubsidized loan. This is going to be not need-based. It is going to mean that your student is responsible for interest the whole time of the loan. So once they accept it, they will start accumulating interest on it in that school year, and they'll keep accumulating interest on it as they go, and it's that same fixed interest rate. The reason we say to apply for FAFSA to have the options of these loans, even if maybe you're not interested in taking them at first, is that it's always great to have a fallback option if needed. So with these, again, they are the lowest interest rate compared to outside or private loans, so it is important to have these in case you need them. So when you're looking at these, they are going to be fixed rates from each year that you are going to school. From freshman to sophomore to junior and senior, they're going to be different amounts, as you can see on the screen. And they increase each year as you go, knowing that your overall cost is going to increase as well. So when we look at these type of federal loans, they are going to be called those Stafford loans. They are going to be very useful to your student compared to outside or private loans to start with, because once they accept these, they technically don't have to pay on them if they don't want to. They have a grace period until 6 months after graduation, that then once they graduate college, 6 months after, they will have to start paying on them. So they get some time to figure out what they're doing. They also get to make some money, and then they start paying on those loans. There will be fees, but the nice thing is the money goes directly to the school. I know as a parent seeing those numbers, they are pretty high. You don't want to check going straight to your student. So it goes directly to that financial aid office once accepted. No check sent to you that you have to worry about. And like I said, they do have those loan limits. Another type of federal loan is the Parent Plus loan. This is going to be directly tied to the parent. So yes, it is for your student, but it is totally on the parent themselves for that responsibility to pay it off. It is interest bearing, just like the unsubsidized loan. As well as that, you can see the interest rate, and it will have fees. What it is to get this is a credit check will have to be done. You have to qualify through an application, as well as what it will be is once you have completed this and been accepted, you will get that cost of attendance. So that grand total price minus any aid that you've received, so taking out a federal loan, if you've received any free aid, you'll have to accept all of this, and then it's that last price tag cost that you have at the end. So you can't take out more than what you technically owe the college, it's just what is left there to pay. When we're comparing these loans, we've obviously already seen the federal ones, but then there are the private outside loans that you can look at if there is more that you have to make up. This can look like ISL Education Lending, Sallie Mae, and the others you can see on the screen with those interest rates. This is going to be more than what those federal loans, because like I said, the federal loans are the lowest interest rate. But when we are looking at outside private loans, I always recommend to shop around. So yes, there's that Parent Plus loan, but I'd even shop around if you can do that Parent Plus loan. Sometimes you may be surprised how these can compete with it, so make sure you do your research. One thing I will put out here, because I'll talk about it in a second as well, ISL Education Lending, great resource, even if it's something that you're not going to use their loan. They have great things on their website explaining loans to kids and how they work, as well as they have scholarships on there as well, not only for high school students, but also further on in their undergrad career. Another source is going to be that state of Iowa aid. So we went from federal to state. So this on the screen will only require that FAFSA form. Then from there, there's ones that you can actually go to the actual application itself for Iowa aid and fill out to be able to qualify for, and those will be here. If you want more information on these are all on our website again, or in that booklet, and they'll describe them more on how to qualify. Then it'll come to institutional aid, and I'll let you talk a little bit about it.
So I'm going to share kind of some big picture things that would be relevant at any of the colleges that your students are applying to, but I'll also share a few things that might be a little bit more specific to us at the University of Iowa. When it comes to institutional aid, most colleges and universities will offer a combination of need-based and merit-based aid. Need-based aid is going to come based on the results of the FAFSA, typically in the form of grants or scholarships. Merit-based aid is going to come typically in the form of scholarships. So with
need-based aid through the University of Iowa, if we have students that fill out the FAFSA by our priority date, which for us this year is February 1st, students can potentially qualify for additional grant funds through our Office of Student Financial Aid. We also have a variety of merit-based scholarships that students can automatically be considered for upon point of application. This is pretty common for a lot of colleges and universities. When you apply for admission, you're automatically considered for a certain amount in merit scholarships. For us at Iowa, the main scholarship students are automatically considered for is the ISA, or the Iowa Scholars Award. This ranges from $500 to $8,500 each year for residents of the state of Iowa, and it's based on the information a student submits in their application for admission. We don't publish our criteria on our website. We do a more holistic review. Some colleges and universities might have their scholarship criteria published, so students might know even before they apply for admission what they can expect to receive in merit-based scholarships from a particular school. For us at Iowa, we'll send out those initial scholarship offers within about a month of being admitted. So if a student applied for admission when our application first opened, they heard back with an admission decision in early September, they may have just found out this week what their initial scholarship offer was for us at Iowa. With our scholarships, we will continue to accept updated academic information until April 1st of senior year. So students can send us updated transcripts if their GPA bumps up, updated ACT or SAT scores if they take or retake the test. Those can be some good options for students in terms of merit aid. So at other schools that your students might be applying for, your best bet for more information is the admissions office. Have your student contact their admission counselor and figure out what types of merit-based scholarships they may be eligible for. We also at Iowa, and many other schools will have something similar, we have a large scholarship database called the Iowa Scholarship Portal. This is a resource that's going to have extensive scholarship information about scholarships through certain departments or programs. Most of these for us are going to be for current students. So these are opportunities that a student could apply for during their freshman year at Iowa that would begin their following year as a second-year student. Many colleges or universities will have some type of scholarship portal or scholarship database. Those deadlines can fluctuate. For us at Iowa, those scholarship deadlines might come up in December or January, which is before our FAFSA priority date. So we would encourage students to take a look at that scholarship portal early and often to make sure they're not missing out on any of those opportunities. And again, other institutions may have something similar. Your best bet for more information about those is the admissions office. I would encourage your student to mark a few important dates on the calendar for each of the colleges that they're applying to, the FAFSA priority date for sure, and then also any deadlines with regards to merit-based scholarships that might be automatic, and also any deadlines for those scholarship portals or scholarship databases. Those are important deadlines to get on the calendar so that you don't miss out on any of those things. We also will often encourage students to check with their high school counselors to talk about local scholarships within the community. If your student has older friends or siblings or cousins that have graduated within the last couple years, it's always good to chat with those folks to see what are some local scholarship opportunities that they may have applied for and received. Parents, check in with your employers. If your student has a part-time job, encourage them to check in with their employers as well. If you're part of any community or religious organizations, parents, if you're part of any professional networks, those can sometimes be good sources for scholarships as well. I have a colleague who often shares a story. He's a part of a credit union, and he's been asked to serve on the scholarship selection committee for his credit union. One year they were trying to give away 4 scholarships, and they only had 2 applicants. And so the 2 applicants both received that full share of the money, just because there were no other students that applied. Those can sometimes be opportunities that are overlooked. Sometimes these are smaller dollar amounts, but every little bit helps. So if you can encourage your students to take the time to fill out those local scholarship applications, that can be a huge thing for students to help maximize those opportunities. Even being able to pay for textbooks or some of those indirect expenses, that can be a huge help for students. So again, encouraging your students to take a little bit of initiative in that process, talk to their high school counselors, do some outreach as a parent as well to see what local scholarships your student may be able to apply for. And there are also some great online resources as well. I know I will often encourage students to check out ICANN scholarship database. There are some other great links on here as well. Some of the more national scholarship databases, there could be hundreds or thousands of students applying for those awards. It's definitely worth looking into, but I think it's important to be realistic that those are going to be really popular options for students across the country to be applying for. So good things to look into, but typically your best bet for scholarships is going to be the college or university that you are applying to. And your best source of information for merit-based scholarships or other institutional aid is going to be the admission counselor that your student is connected with at that particular college or university. I know at Iowa, our admissions office, we're the ones that answer all questions about scholarships. If we need to refer you to our colleagues in the Office of Student Financial Aid, we'll definitely be able to do so if you have questions about student loans, the FAFSA, grants, other more specific things, special circumstances like Maggie mentioned, and we can help you make that connection with our colleagues in financial aid, but typically admissions is going to be your best bet for those initial questions about any type of institutional aid.
Okay, so like she said, great resources out there, as well as we have our own database as well that you could always refer to on our website. And just pointing out that ISL Education Lending Scholarship, we do work directly with them, so that is going on right now. Feel free to go look at that, have your student check it out and start filling it out. It goes till December 2nd of 2024. So again, something to get on if you're not only already looking at scholarships for your students or talking to any of your counselors, talk to them, figure out what you can be doing now or preparing right now for those next ones. And always be aware, so if you are going on Google yourself or going to certain websites that you may have heard, make sure you're being careful if they're asking you to pay for it, if they're asking any real personal information like a social security number that you're using, that you're being careful when doing that. You shouldn't be putting anything like that on an application. If you want more help about the more specific parts of maybe the search, cover letters, how to get letters of recommendation, application process, or writing an essay, go to our website and you can watch our webinar. We have one over scholarships every part of the year. So we had one for fall and we'll have one for spring as well. Feel free to go and check that out. Now talking about financial aid offers, I'll talk about them a little bit and then I will hand it over to her as well to talk about Iowa specific. But when we are looking at financial aid offers, it'll be more specific to each university, how it looks, each college, what they're going to request you to do. So whether they email you, whether you have to go into your student account and look at like a portal and actually accept or decline, there is going to be a variety of things. This is just a typical what it will kind of look like. It'll have that cost of attendance like we discussed, so that direct cost, what it costs to, go to class, those fees, housing and food, and then as well as those indirect costs of books and supplies, transportation, all these things kind of built in that are a little bit more variable on you to then help plan for that next step. And then it'll go down the list of having those, maybe that free gift aid that you're getting. So maybe a Pell Grant or scholarships that not only you have qualified for through the college, but maybe private scholarships. One thing I'd like to point out with this is that if you look at a financial aid offer and your student has qualified for a scholarship, talk to your admissions counselor, talk to your financial aid office, get that information to them so you can have a financial aid offer that reflects the most accurate depiction of what you're going to be looking at. As well as that it'll have those loans on there as well, or if your student qualifies for work study, and then usually that last price tag amount that it's going to cost you. So making sure you are looking over this, something that I always look at first for a student, that first financial aid offer you're going to get, you may have not selected housing or food yet. With that, those are always some areas that you can maybe decide what costs will look like. You can't pick exactly where you're going to live, but maybe deciding, okay, maybe I can't afford to live on campus. Or if you have to live on campus, maybe we aren't going for the nicest, fanciest thing if that costs the most and we're not, and we need to cut costs somewhere. As well as meal plans. If you're a student and you know that you are not going to eat every single meal, breakfast, lunch, supper, 7 days a week at the CAF, maybe cutting back on your meal plan a little bit there. I can guarantee you, you're going to want to go out to eat with friends. You're going to maybe want to just have a quick cereal bar or something in your room for breakfast before you go to your 8 a.m. So looking at these things are all ways that you can kind of cut costs somewhere. Those are the easiest ways to start. And making sure when we are going over these that we are comparing the costs. So those direct costs with what we're receiving, and then looking at that remaining cost there between two different schools, maybe one that's a little bit more expensive to the one that's a little bit less expensive, even though that they have two big different costs starting at it, the scholarships they're able to offer or the grants they're able to offer are maybe a little bit different. So we want to make sure we compare all of our financial aid offers so that we know what we're actually getting. Because by the end, College A to College B here, you can see that they now, what you may need to borrow or look at for savings is about the same. So these are things that we just want to make sure you're looking at it. You're not looking at the price tag and instantly scared and trying to make a decision there. We want to make sure we're weighing out all options when it does come to financial aid offers. Realities of financial aid, a lot of times you're going to have a final cost at the end of it. A lot of times your freshman year is going to be a lot different from those next 3 years, or next year if you're going to a 2-year. That first year you get a lot of different free aid, maybe from community scholarships that you may not be renewable for the next upcoming years. So we want to make sure when it's decision time, we're looking through these different things and making sure, okay, what ways can I come up with this money then from there? So we have this last amount. Are we working to pay this? Are we taking out that federal loan? Are we making a payment plan, which I'll let you talk about in a second. Are we taking out a variety of these things? Maybe we're doing a student loan mixed with we're having a job, or we're having 2 jobs. We're looking at a variety of things to then discuss, have that big discussion, not only as parents. We want to open this conversation up between the parent and student. So if you haven't had that conversation as a parent yet, I recommend starting that soon so our student isn't blindsided down the road what they may have to come up with, or how they need to plan about those financials down the road. So I'll hand it over to let you talk about Iowa's process of the financial aid offers, as well as I know payment plans can vary between schools, but what it kind of looks like.
For sure. So at Iowa, and just to kind of recap briefly what our timeline is going to look like, FAFSA will be open on the 1st of December. Our priority date is February 1st this year. That will allow us to gather information and start working on creating financial aid offer letters for our students. We hope to have those in students' hands by the end of March. So a little bit different timeline than normal, but certainly earlier than it was last year, so that's good news. When our financial aid offer letters are available, we will send students an email letting them know that they can log into their MyUI account, which is our online student information system, and view their offer letter online. We will also send a paper copy to their home with a financial aid guide that's going to give some more specific information about understanding what that offer letter means. We will also send parents an email that says, hey, your student has received important information about financial aid. You should talk to your student. We never send those over email just because that does include some potentially sensitive financial information. So you can see that paper copy that's mailed to the student's home and then also log into the student's MyUI account to view that. When you are looking at the offer letter, I think our financial aid office has done a great job of making that clear and easy to understand. It's going to start with cost of attendance, both direct and indirect costs, just as Maggie mentioned. Then it's going to include the free or gift aid, so money that your student is not going to have to pay back. That could include if they qualify for a federal Pell Grant, if they qualified for any need-based aid through the University of Iowa, if they qualified for the Iowa Scholars Award, our primary merit scholarship through admissions, if they got any scholarships through that Iowa Scholarship Portal, those would all be listed in that gift aid section of the offer letter. Then we're going to do the math for you. We're going to subtract the cost of attendance minus the gift aid the student has received. We'll also subtract the cost of the direct Stafford loan if the student has filled out the FAFSA, and that will give you your out-of-pocket expenses. We're also going to list some other options, a Parent Plus loan if the parent is interested in applying for one of those, and then if the student qualifies for work study as well. And we'll give you more information in that packet that comes with the financial financial aid offer letter of what work study might mean for a student. Work study is a little bit different than it may have been when some of the parents in the room were in college. I have had some parents that said when they were in college, work study meant that their paycheck went directly to their U-bill. That's typically not how work study will work anymore. Typically how work study is going to work, whether a student qualifies for federal work study or not, students are able to have a job on campus. If they qualify for federal work study based on the results of the FAFSA, the big difference is actually going to be on the employer's end, not on the student's end. Whether or not a student qualifies for work study, if they have a part-time job on campus, that money is going to be directly deposited into their bank account, and they get to decide what they're going to do with that paycheck. Are they going to save that up to help them pay for the next semester's U-bill, or are they going to use that paycheck to help with some of their indirect expenses, their personal expenses, transportation, those kinds of things. The real difference with work study is really on the employer side, so nothing that a student needs to worry about too much. But the biggest thing I think for families to know is that whether or not you qualify for work study on your offer letter, if your student wants a job on campus, they are likely going to be able to find one. We always encourage families, if you're looking over this offer letter and you have questions, call admissions first. We're happy to walk through that with you. I know that typically at other institutions, admissions is going to be the first point of contact. If you have questions or you're not understanding what you're seeing on that offer letter, we want to help you through that. Once you receive that offer letter, typically you're going to need to do something in order to kind of verify or accept the financial aid offer that you've received. At Iowa, the only thing that you have to do to accept your gift aid is accept your offer of admission. We're going to go ahead and assume that students are going to take any of the free money that they're offered. But some schools you may have to actually go into your portal and accept any scholarships or grants that you've received. That's when we will have students register for their online orientation over the summer and complete some of the other steps once they've accepted their offer of admission and committed to becoming a Hawkeye. We also have some opportunities for a payment plan. This might look a little bit different at every school, but largely it will be the same. Students can enroll in a payment plan option for just a $20, little bit of paperwork and a $20 sign-up fee to enroll in the payment plan. What that will do, your student's tuition is automatically going to be split in half in the fall semester, half in the spring. If they enroll in the payment plan, that will split the fall bill into 3 equal payments in August, September, and October. They will split the spring bill into 3 equal payments in January, February, and March. And many other institutions will offer that as well. So if it's easier for you as a family or for your student to pay the remainder in 3 equal payments rather than in one lump sum, you're able to do that. That just requires a little bit of paperwork that typically students will do over the summer as part of the student's orientation process. So just make sure that you and your student are keeping up with emails from the financial aid office or from the Office of Admission throughout the summer. I had a student the other day who said that she hadn't gotten any information that we were trying to send her about some of those important steps over the summer. I checked in the system. We had sent 7 different emails since May 1st. She said, well, I got the emails, but nobody told me. Email is how colleges tell you things, so make sure that your students are reading their emails and sharing those emails with you. That's a very important skill to build throughout junior and senior year. Also, over the summer, you're going to need to complete some final steps if you are planning to take out any of those student loans. So if you're planning on taking out the direct Stafford loan, there's a few things that you'll do typically through your college's online student portal. The first is going to be to sign something called your master promissory note. This is basically a document that says, I understand the terms of my loan and I understand that I'll need to pay that back after graduation. And you'll also complete something called student loan entrance counseling. This is a bit of an online tutorial and online orientation to your student loans, helping students understand all of the terms of the loan, the interest rate, what repayment is going to look like. Again, helping students have a better idea of what they're taking on by taking out this student loan. We also encourage students at Iowa, when I'm talking to families, if you are working with a bank or a private lender to potentially borrow the remainder of what the student owes in a private loan, we encourage families to talk to at least 3 or 4 different lenders, ask questions, figure out who's going to give you the lowest interest rate and the best terms. We typically tell families that by the 4th of July, you should probably have the paperwork signed for your private loans. 4th of July is kind of a good halfway point of the summer. You get to July 4th, you should probably have the paperwork at least in progress for those loans so that everything can be ready to go by the time the student's first bill becomes available, which at most institutions is going to be on August 1st. And if you have specific questions, obviously about payment plans or anything like that, again, admissions is usually going to be a great option. I know our colleagues at ICANN are always happy to help with reviewing offer letters, and you can definitely reach out to admissions and financial aid at the colleges you've applied to as well.
So just like before, we have an in-depth video about it on our website, so feel free to check it out. With those different payment plans, colleges, like I said, will look a little bit different as you go, so just talk with your admissions counselor. They're going to know what's best, and they're going to be able to help you out with that. What is also nice, though, if you set that up, it doesn't withhold your student from registering for classes. So I know a lot of people get nervous about it, but it's not going to set you back on anything. When we talk about financial aid assistance, again, feel free to always reach out to us. Like I said, we help with FAFSAs. We help with creating your studentaid.gov account. You come into my office or join a Zoom appointment, and I ask you questions, but I do it for you the whole time. So it is not confusing on your part. We'll talk through it, we'll figure it out, and we'll get it done. It usually takes me, with an average family coming in prepared, less than 30 minutes. So instead, if you're at home and you're spending an hour to 2 hours, pause it, come and see me. I want to help you. I want to take away that family argument that happens in the middle. I would love to assist you with that to make it a smooth process. As well as your admissions counselors, your financial aid offices. If it is peak financial aid time, FAFSA time, your financial aid offices are going to be flooded. So feel free to reach out to us first with those easier questions and less specific to the college, but then go to your admissions counselor. Like she said, they are here to help walk you from now all the way to those first day of classes and more. I used to be in admissions, and again, more questions the better, because I'm going to be able to get you ready for that first day and that you're not behind going into it. Last thing you want is that your student is a few months in and maybe it's too late to accept or decline anything. So ask those questions, contact them. Like she said, emails are important for our students now. When we get into college, they're treated as an adult. So all emails, contacts are usually going to them. As a parent, we got to make sure, okay, have we checked it? If not, talk to the admissions counselor and she'll tell you whether they got an email or not. So go from there and then figure out what is the next step. Other resources that are out there is SP3. You can sign up. They're going to give you alerts through email and help you along the way through these steps. So you can just go and register at their website there, and they'll send you 2 emails per month and maybe put you in a drawing for a 529. There's also Virtual College Coach texting program through Iowa Department of Education. Feel free to scan this, or you can go to Iowa Department of Education's website and find it there as well. And then I gave you a lot of information today. I know if you walk away and you only learned a couple things, that's okay. I gave you way too much, and I understand that, and I coughed a lot in between. But all those resources are out there. Take those with you, utilize them. If you take away anything, go home and create that account. Get that studentaid.gov account done before December 1. Schedule an appointment with us or talk with us if you have any questions. Feel free to follow us at any of our social media or go to our website. We have an e-alert thing that pops up right away when you go to our website. That is how you're going to know when our scheduling opens for the FAFSA. If anything changes with the FAFSA, if there's delays even more, we're going to notify you as well. So go sign up for our e-alerts, follow us so that you're up to date with everything. Thank you again for Iowa for partnering with us. And then if you want to give any feedback, feel free to scan the QR code on the screen, or it's on the back of those booklets. But thank you all for having us and bearing with me through this. Have Have a great night, everybody.